What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, as you can see by the title, it's going to be a double whammy. It's going to be my game of the year for 2021 and an update to a franchise I like personally. Alrighty, as you guys know, we'll get into the rules for my game of the year and nominations. Honestly, as you guys can see, there hasn't been too many personal games other than Persona 5 Strikers, Tales of Arise, and Kuro no Kiseki that I've played. This year has been kind of light, so I've been really only been playing ongoing games like Fire Emblem Heroes, Destiny 2, pretty much these three games, along with another gacha game that I picked up recently, which was Azure Lane. There hasn't been much this year that has excited me, to be quite frank with you, and a lot of it I could have just watched from another Let's Play channel, to be quite honest with you. But once again, the game of the years are the games that I have personally played this year and have released this year. There's no it releasing into a different language somewhere else that counts. No, none of that. Once again, if you guys don't know my criteria, we consider gameplay as the highest criteria, followed by story and character progression. Next up, which is sound design, aka your music, your voice acting, your songs, all of that. Finally comes graphics, because once again, I don't think graphics are super important. As long as you can hit a steady 60 frames per second, I prefer that. But as long as you have an art style that works with your game and but you feel comfortable and you can utilize to its fullest advantage, I feel that's more important than anything else. So we have two nominees this year, which comes down to Tales of Arise and Kuro no Kiseki. As if you guys haven't seen my reviews of these two games, I was very critical of both of them, personally speaking. But as you guys have known, my past Game of the Year reviews, we've been kind of inching toward a certain game studio and a certain franchise. And to no one's surprise, that trend is going to continue on in 2021. My Game of the Year goes to Kuro no Kiseki. And once again, it ultimately comes down to Tales of Rise and Kuro no Kiseki. I think both games are very, very strong. I did like them, even though I was critical of them. I do very much enjoy both games. But it ultimately came down to Tales of Arise could have dethroned Kuro no Kiseki. The ultimate problem with Tales of Arise, even though it has the best gameplay to date in combat, even better than Berseria, it ultimately fails because the story isn't compelling. The game was rushed because it was delayed so many times. They had to scrap a lot of the game. I really didn't mind the original first half of the story, where it was essentially fighting the four lords, and it was very, linear. I guessed everything that would have happened, and it got it correct. Honestly, if they kind of prolonged that first half of the game for that and make that the entirety of the game, I think I would have been pretty happy with the conclusion, and would have like maybe Tales of Arise 2 where they would go to the second half of the game. Because you could really see during the second half of the game, they really did rush it. There was barely any new locales to go to. The story felt shoehorned in. It was pretty much just a rush, do whatever it needs to take to make some type of conclusion for the game. And ultimately, that's kind of where Tales of Arise fails the greatest at. And I hate to say that because I do really like all the characters. It just came down to the overall story in the second half that really threw it out for the bus. I felt like, the first half was acceptable. I didn't really expect the reinvention of the wheel. Then the second half kind of threw all that away. And it ultimately comes down to they were in crunch. They had to release they released the game late, and it was pretty much reworked from the ground up. And the fact that I think they've kind of lost their way a little bit. I'm not going to tell Bandai Namco or the Tales of franchise to stop doing the mobile games. Even though I can tell you the mobile games probably make a lot of money, I don't think there was a need to make Tales of Luminaria. I think you should really stick to making a solid Tales of game. But that's just me personally. They make way more money with the mobile games, to be quite honest. And I just wish it wasn't that case, because I feel we're not going to get any more high quality Tales of games anymore with high quality story, and that is ultimately the biggest failing. What takes away from Tales of Arise for me, and that ultimately is what makes it not as appealing as Kuro no Kiseki. Kuro no Kiseki, I did give a lot of hard love. I didn't like all the changes made to the gameplay wise. The gameplay is, it is the standard Trails of game, Legend of the Heroes stuff. You do side quests, you pretty much, it's a linear story. But the ultimate thing was there was some changes that I didn't like, personally speaking, with a little the quality of life stuff in it. But overall, I got used to it, and the game played pretty much. I mean, I mastered the systems, and at the end of the day, I still love the systems. The real thing is, Kurono Kiseki and Tales of Arise are two different, you know, two different beasts. Where Tales of Arise was meant to be a one-off series, it was to contain all of the story in it. Whereas Kurono Kiseki is building on a complete franchise of stories interconnecting parts, and that's what ultimately wins over my story part of the argument because the game feels more whole. It has interconnections. There's everything combining together, making both the gameplay and the story and everything else. It just fits. It feels it's such a high quality for a game that pretty much came out on short notice. I mean, it's been 2 years since is I can't remember exactly. I gotta go look it up again. It's been 1 to 2 years since Hajimari no Kiseki came out, and we're gonna get into the news story after this. Once I can get crowned the winner, which is obviously Kuro no Kiseki, and we'll talk about that. But Nihao Falcom continues to show to this day, and this is why I praise them so much. They're making great games consistently year after year when no one else around has been. Kuro no Kiseki has been an evolution from Hajimari still, even with the small short time span that they've had, to make such a great game. And the world is evolving. They're making new systems up. They're trying to diversify, and they're doing it. It's amazing. So once again, guys, my game of the year goes to Kuro no Kiseki. And we're gonna move on to the second part of the news. And if you guys don't know, I really haven't been keeping up with the news. But once again, I didn't want to really announce it just yet. But as you guys know, Kuro no Kiseki 2 is getting it's the second game, the next installation next year in 2022. It just feels like, I mean, it just came out 3 months ago, and we're getting the second game to the sequel to this game next year already. Once again, it shows Falcom willing to actually conclude the entirety of this story within in their lifetime. They are wanting to finish this, so I am once again super excited for Kuro no Kiseki 2. They did an incredible job with one. Like, once again, I cannot stop praising the amount of characters they bring in, the story they bring in, the interconnections of each parts of the entirety of this franchise, and it's incredible to see. So once again, there's barely any news about it. Once again, they just announced it, so it looks like Kondo did backtrack a little bit, saying this might be the only part to the game. It looks like we might get a trilogy. We don't know yet, but I'm thinking it's going to be a two-part series. If we're lucky, we'll get 3 parts, and I'm totally down for that. But also comes a darker side to this story. They did acknowledge that the fact that Hajimari no Kiseki won't be out till maybe 2023, meaning that Kuro no Kiseki number one might not be out in English till maybe 2024 at the earliest. Because once again Nisa is super busy. Honestly, once again, I'm still not a huge fan of Nisa. I would honestly downplay them quite a bit. I would honestly say like they might need to look for someone else to start localizing this stuff because they still have to do Owl and Zero before they even get to Hajimari. And Hajimari, once again, they said 2023. I don't know if they're going to keep that time schedule. Maybe a year after Hajimari, we might get Kuro. Right now, as by 2022, we're going to get Kuro no Kiseki 2. If their timeline still continues, we might see in the next Trails of game, if it's Kuro 3 in 2023, or it would be 2024 when we see the next franchise or part of the story, if Kuro no Kiseki 2 is the finale of this arc. We don't know, but once again, that puts the game series so far behind again when they've said to themselves they would commit to localizing these in a more timely manner. And I really, like I said before, I think they really should skip Hajimari just to put Kuro out. Even though some of the end game of Hajimari won't make sense if you put Kuro first, I just feel like people really should experience Kuro no Kiseki. It's really, really good. Ultimately, it's a real hard situation to be in, especially for people that really want to enjoy this franchise and don't want to play the Japanese version, nor do they want to do the screen overlays with the English sub that once again the community does. Um, it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, and I don't know where the answer is at this point because we're just it's just not there yet. Alrighty, folks. With that said and done, once again, congratulations, Neon Falcom. Congratulations, Kuro no Kiseki. Game of the year. What can I say? Till the next one. Peace out.